There are a lot of edge rushers in the 2022 NFL draft, and we're going to talk about the main ones here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. Ooh-wee!
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I am your host, your pal, and the kid you copied off in math class. My name is Luke Braun. You can find me on Twitter at LukeBraunNFL. You can find the show on Twitter at Locked On Vikings. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, each and every day. Today on the show, it's Edge Rusher Day, so I'm talking about all the main ones, all the ones that could fall to the Vikings. Who do I pick at 12? Who do I pick at 46 mostly? And try to get through as much of that class of people as possible. I don't want to rush through and try to be comprehensive, so I am going to miss out on some names. If I miss out on your favorite guy, my apologies. That doesn't mean I have them lower than everybody on this list. It just means I didn't get around to him. I don't have an opinion. Or in some cases, like Logan Hall's not on this list. I see him as more of an inside guy, and that's a different category. So I have 11 players that I want to get through. I probably won't get through any of them because I'm not going to rush through the first ones just to give you time to have like better Arnold Ebiketie takes. Before we get into the edge rushers, there's a few housekeeping things I want to let you know about. For one, I am doing the same thing I did for the last couple years, if you've been listening for that long. I am doing the same day 3 charity contest. So I have a tweet in the show notes. You have to reply to that tweet to enter. Otherwise, I will never find your submission after day 3. But give me your day 3 crush and your favorite charity. And if the Vikings pick your guy between rounds 5 and 7, undrafted doesn't count, then I will donate $10 to your favorite charity, to the charity of your choice. Really fun little game that we all get to play together. Few things, it's first come, first serve. So if your guy has already been said, sorry, you got to pick a new one. And you can only submit one guy. If you give me a list, I won't count any of them. So one guy. And there's other stuff. Go read the post and tell me what you think. You have until I record tomorrow, until I record Friday's episode where I'm going to talk about some of them as well. Let's get into these edge rushers. The guy I have number 1, we'll do these in order of most favorite to least favorite. My number 1 edge rusher, drum roll it up, baby. Let's go. It's Travon Walker. Out of Georgia. That's my number 1. And I know Thibs is here. Aidan Hutchinson is here. We'll get to them and why I have them lower. But for now, let me talk about Travon Walker and what I see in him. So you hear edge rusher and usually you think like Everson Griffen would be the kind of guy that comes to mind because he's somebody, he lines up out on the edge and he goes up against the tackle all day and he tries to get sacks. Like that's what we think of as an edge rusher. Travon Walker is not that. He's sort of positionless. He doesn't belong in any column, and edge rusher is the closest thing to what he is, like size-wise, so he goes in this category. But I would draft him. This is the important part. I would draft him before any of the other more traditional edge rushers, and the reason is versatility. I put in my notes about him, the stupidest athleticism ever. And I think that's a way to put him because he has the athleticism to be an edge rusher, to rush the B gap from a 2-point stance, to hold the edge against guards that have, 60 pounds on him. And also he's like a decent cover linebacker. Like he can do so many different things and you can give him so many different jobs. Giving somebody with that much flexibility to your defensive coordinator is the strength, especially in the defense Ed Donatell's going to run, where mixing up the front and moving people around is like the whole point. If you want to move Zadarius Smith around, that means you have to be able to move everybody else out of his way. And having somebody who can do multiple jobs like that and can swap around makes that puzzle so much easier, and then you can attack whoever you want. The thing is, the way Georgia used him was basically like that in kind of a roving position. And they did a lot of work to give him quality opportunities, to stunt him and to loop him around. And there was not a lot of, they did this against Alabama in the first couple games and it actually didn't work. There wasn't a lot of just him mano-a-mano all day with a guy. And that's what we think of. Like when I think of Everson Griffen, I think of that, right? I think of him kind of like trash talking Russell Okung and like talking about all throughout the game, talking about what he's going to do to you and stuff, and playing a mind game and setting you up and, speed rushing all day until he busts out the spin move, at a crucial third down and all that stuff. That is not Travon Walker's game. And if you do that, Georgia did that and he got cooked by Evan Neal in the SEC championship game. Don't do that. I don't think he's for that. And the Vikings don't have as much interest in that. That's what Danielle Hunter does too, and they're going to move him around. So that's not really a role the Vikings have. Instead, they're going to ask people to be more versatile. So I like Travon Walker more in that role. And it can be, if you move him around, he can be a focal point. And we have a lot of focal point guys already. You can't have too many of those though. So he can be a focal point this week or whatever. In like a very similar way that you use like a Micah Parsons, that Dallas uses Micah Parsons right now. Not that they're the same player, but they can occupy that same space of like, this dude can back off and be an off-ball Mike linebacker, and he can also rush around the edge. And as the quarterback, you don't know which thing he's going to do. And therefore the defense is that much harder to figure out. And then you add blitzes and wrinkles and weird, exotic things. And all that stuff gets that much more potent. As a just hand in the dirt edge rusher, he is not the best in this class. I'd probably put him like 5th, maybe 4th in this class in terms of that skill, like rawly. So if you are a team that's just going to put his hand in the dirt, have him be an edge rusher, and he goes up against tackles all day, like I don't think he should go 1 overall for that. I don't think he should go to the Jaguars for that. I don't think that's the fit. But for what the Vikings would do to him, he's a very, very good fit, which is why he's the only person on this whole list that we're going to talk about today that I would actually consider trading up for. And the reason for this is A, he's 270, I think. He's not the biggest dude. And B, he's a thinker, not a feeler. He's very instinctive about how to get himself into good positions. He knows kind of where to attack and kind of how to get up to the shoulder, right, and get into good leverage positions. And has a very instinctive way. And then once he's in that position, he has to think about what move comes next. And you can tell it's memorized patterns of moves, and it's not an instinctive fight. He's not sparring. He's kind of like performing a rehearsed sequence of moves. And that's just not going to be as potent. You're going to get into a good position, and then you're going to let offensive linemen get back into the play by not quickly punishing it enough. So that's like why he struggled so much against Evan Neal, because Evan Neal could get that recovery and punish him. So don't do that. Don't just make him be the guy that goes up against an offensive tackle all day. That offensive tackle is going to have the advantage there. You have to give him that blitzing, weird advantage, the element of surprise, I guess, where you don't know where he's going to go. If you're the guard, you don't know if you're getting Travon Walker or not. And that's the advantage. He's very, very good at like selling fakes and kind of setting guys up with that and working within a grander scheme and really maximizing that grander scheme. That is his role. So you have to give him that blitzy thing. And so you'll see a lot of stats that are like, he has, if you take away stunts and blitzes, he has like the worst pass rush win rate of these guys in the class. You're going to see that kind of stat, but why would you take away stunts and blitzes? It's like the point of him is to maximize those, to be very, very good at those. And I don't think of like Travon Walker on a stunt as the stunt doing all the work for him. He does all the work for the stunt. And that's why he's the highest guy for me. He fits so effortlessly and seamlessly into what the Vikings are trying to build with Za'Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter and all these guys. And he's elite at the thing the Vikings need their defensive linemen to do. The next guy that brings me to is, we'll do kind of number 2 and number 3 here. But first things first, Mother's Day is coming up. And look, don't procrastinate like I often do. Don't wait till the last minute. Head on over to BlueNile.com, the original online jeweler. They have fine jewelry options for every mom. Shop high-quality classic diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, or gemstone pendant necklaces. This Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Vikings listeners get $50 off of $500. This podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day, so use code LOCKEDON. That's code LOCKEDON, all one word. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever place. Go to BlueNile.com today. Moving on here. Again, don't forget to check out the Ultimate Mock Draft. Just look up Ultimate Mock Draft anywhere you find your favorite podcasts. So the next guy, number 2 on my edge list, is Kayvon Thibodeaux. A lot of people have him going 1 overall. I actually like his fit for the Jags better. So even though for the Vikings, I have him number 2, if you're talking about who should go number 1 overall, I actually kind of think that he should go to the Jags more than he should go to the Vikings. Like they should be different on this than a Vikings specific one is. But I'm thinking Vikings specific. This is Locked On Vikings. Kayvon Thibodeaux is all feels. He is all instinct. And he's very clearly, he's got that like blood in the water, shark with blood in the water kind of thing, where he can really sense when you make the tiniest mistake and pounce. And he has the get off of gods. Oh my God, does this dude explode off the snap? And that's what makes him so potent. You overset just a little bit. One of his coolest sacks that he got in his senior year came this way. You overset just a little bit, and he explodes into that space that you gave up to him. And so he's very, very confident in his ability to punish that mistake, to go attack that window. He's too confident. And this is not, I know in like Dane Brugler's guide and a couple other things, people have said like people have gotten like an arrogant vibe or a cocky vibe off of him personality wise. I don't care about that unless I meet a guy. So I'm not going to put that in my evaluation, but the way he plays is a little bit cocky, and that can be a double-edged sword. That can be a good thing and a bad thing, because it means you're attacking windows that other guys won't attack, and you're going to seize opportunities that other guys won't seize, but you're also going to seize opportunities that maybe you shouldn't try to seize. There's one rep where he sees an opening inside and he tries to go attack it, and it closes up really fast, and it's absolutely not that good of an opportunity, but he thinks he can flash across 2 gaps and get in there and make a play. And like, shoot, he can, like sometimes he can. So he like kind of has a justification for doing this, but then he gets himself in trouble and he gets swallowed up. Here's what I want to see out of him to really maximize him, but I think he's already a superstar. But to really maximize him, I want him to be better at keeping guys away from him. He has a lot of reach and a lot of length. It's like probably the second most exciting thing about him is his length after his get off. He's too willing to get into the phone booth with you. So when he attacks, he is not attacking at length. He's not attacking from distance. He's setting you up, and then he's getting underneath you and he's bending around you, but he's very inside and using that length. I don't think he utilizes his length often enough. And if he started to use his length more, you've got yourself an all-pro, bar none, perennial all-star. But that instinctual style of play makes him a much more potent threat while he is learning to refine the more technical aspects. And he's very young. So he definitely has a lot of development ahead of him. There is room for growth here in an exciting way. So look, both Travon Walker and Kayvon Thibodeaux are not falling to 12. But if they did, like, look, there have been mocks where these guys fall to 12. And the way that I do this big board is that I say, well, if they do, what do I do? Like, what if Travon Walker and Kayvon Thibodeaux fell to 12? Super unrealistic, but if it happens, what do you do? Answer that question in your mind so that you have that kind of listed out correctly. And so I would take Kayvon Thibodeaux if he fell to 12. If Travon Walker fell to 8 or 9, I would trade up. But Kayvon Thibodeaux, I would slam it at 12. I wouldn't quite trade up for him because he's a little bit too unpolished yet, and there's still a little bit too much assembly for me to trade up into the top 10 for a guy. That's a high bar, but at 12, I'm slamming it. And that's actually the only one of these guys that I would take at 12. Only these 2 guys I would take if they fell to 12. Everybody else, I'm only really interested in taking for a trade down. And that includes the next guy, Aidan Hutchinson, who I'm a lot lower on than most. So let me explain myself. But first, here's what everybody knows about Aidan Hutchinson to catch you up if you're unfamiliar. He is unfreaking real with his hands. His hands are not, like, elite doesn't do it justice. His hands are historic. And he is really good at playing the way that I kind of want Thibodeaux to play, where he keeps guys off of him. He keeps guys at a length and away from him, and he swipes arms away, and he's very good at the Mr. Miyagi thing, one of the best that people have ever scouted. And you click on his tape, and you see what people are talking about there. That said, he kind of needs to. Kayvon Thibodeaux can shed in a phone booth. He's not the best at it because he's got a little bit of a lean body, but Aidan Hutchinson cannot. If you get into the phone booth with him, he's cooked. And he's just really, really good at avoiding that. So he generated a lot of production, and his production is really exciting. I think he has the best production in the class. So he has proven that he's able to overcome that. But in the NFL, I think they're going to have an easier time getting him into that phone booth because NFL tackles play different than college tackles. And really, this is something that was pointed out by Alex Rollins, and then I couldn't stop thinking about it when I was watching him. If you jump set into Aidan Hutchinson, he dies. That's it. It's over, and you win the rep. And what a jump set is, it's very common in quick game and 3-step drops and stuff. But it's basically, instead of doing a kick slide or going backwards and letting the guy come to you, it's a much more active way to do it. You kind of launch yourself at the edge rusher. And it's a very risky way to do things because it's a lot harder to set yourself up to really have like a long sustained engagement. But it can very reliably slow a guy down, and that works for like 3-step drops where the ball is out quickly. So it's used a lot in quick game. But against Aidan Hutchinson, he can't punish you for that, because if you take the fight to him with a jump set, and you get into the phone booth with him, you can lock him down in a way that you're usually at a disadvantage doing. He can't punish that disadvantage because of problems with his size and athleticism and stuff. He tested really, really well, but functional athleticism, he doesn't show the ability to shed that block once you've jump set into him. So he really, really dies to a jump set. And here's the thing. In college, not all tackles are going to have the courage to jump set when it's not quick game already. In the NFL, those tackles do, because everybody in the NFL has a really, really good get off. So you have to be kind of ready to do that really, really quick set sort of game. And there's a lot of West Coast offenses in the NFL where offensive tackles just have that drilled really well. They spend a lot of time at it in camp and stuff. So he is going to run into a lot more tackles that are specifically tailored to beat his skill set. And so I think he has way more bust potential than he's getting credit for right now. And that's why he's third on my list. And that's why I actually wouldn't take him at 12 if he were on the board. I would let somebody come up and trade up for him. He's not going to make it to 12. But in a world where he did, in the gas mask world, I wouldn't do it. I know that's a hot take. I know that putting him at like 20th on my board is going to get me a lot of flack. I'm okay with it. But if you think I'm super wrong, you can bet against it at betonline.net. You can bet on all sorts of draft props, who's going to go where, what place, Derek Stingley over under 11th draft choice, stuff like that. You can also bet on the basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs coming up. You can bet on MMA or golf or tennis, or you can even play your favorite Vegas casino game. So head on over to betonline.net and get yourself a Grambling. BetOnline, where the game starts. Moving on with this list. I have gotten through 3 of my 11 people. If I have to, I'll do bonus content or something, though. I'll make sure I get you guys primed on all of these people. But let's move on to the next one I have, which my 4th guy on my board is Jermaine Johnson out of FSU. Jermaine Johnson, honestly, the most exciting thing to me about him is his football intelligence. He's really heady. And he's very good at like reading plays and seeing what's going on, but also he's good at outwitting you. He's the guy that I would set up and say, you go up against that guy all day, and he's going to eventually be able to, strategically lose battles to win the war and set a guy up just to knock him down on the 3rd down. He has that game. That's his game. And so I would be a lot more excited about him if the Vikings hadn't just fired Mike Zimmer. I think he fits better in a Mike Zimmer than what the Vikings would ask him to do now. Not because of his body type. He has that same kind of tweener body type where you can sort of try to instill versatility in him, but I actually think his best move would be to just play edge rusher as he is, as a very like standard edge rushing type. But here's the problem. This dude's get off sucks. Like, he just is sluggish off the ball. Like, it's a really big problem, and it's just going to limit his ability to punish mistakes. If you screw up a snap count, if you are late off the ball, if you just don't build your house very well, Jermaine Johnson is not going to be able to punish you in the way that the guys above him on this list can. And honestly, the guys below him on this list can. He has really, really good hands. They're not quite Aidan Hutchinson, but they're very good. They're still very much a strength for him. And he'll outwit you and stuff. So to me, he projects as like a fine starter. I don't think he's going in a rotational role or anything, and I think he'd be your starting edge rusher, but I don't think he's the focal point of the defense by any stretch of the imagination. I think he is just a starter that you kind of just have slotted into a place, and the defense is really built around somebody else. I'm not going to get overly hyped about his measurables because he doesn't have the explosion off the snap to really take advantage of them. I think he's much more of an intelligence guy, and that's great. You can absolutely make a living, and he'll make a living in the NFL doing that. But that's why I have him fourth, and I have him under Aidan Hutchinson. I would probably take him in the late first round, but like very late first round. This would be like if you did the trade with the Chiefs and you got 29 and 30, I might take him with 29 or 30. And that would be, I think, where he slots in for the Vikings, and like his intelligence makes up for it to be a late first rounder after you kind of get over that he's a weird fit and that he has a really, really bad get off. The next guy on the list is George Karlaftis out of Purdue. He is a meh athlete, but I think he plays more athletic than he tested. Like he looks more athletic on tape. His hands are also very good. They're certainly not Aidan Hutchinson's, and I think Jermaine Johnson's has better hands, but they're very subtle. He's shedding dudes very effortlessly, and it's very quick. And his hand quickness and agility is a very good thing. And there's like no wasted movement. It's polished and kind of ready out the box to be exactly what it has to be. He's mostly known for run game. And so he's also the type of guy to sort of just line him up in one spot like the Vikings would do with Griffin and Hunter. He is just the left end. Let him go up against the right tackle and just be that guy all day and let him duel with a guy. Let him set up a guy and knock him down and really use that hand technique. He's only this slow because he's got tested athleticism, but I would not hate this dude. I also have him as a late first rounder type, but I would take him after I would take Jermaine Johnson. Then there is a huge gap, like a gigantic gap. And the next guy on the list is Boye Mafe out of Minnesota. And look, all of these next guys have the same problem to me, that they're little boys. These are skinny stick boys that are not the sort of beefy dude I want. Remember, you have to be able to set the edge. You have to be able to defeat a 330-pound, 6'8" left tackle, deconstruct his block, and you have to be able to do that reliably so to not get your ass run on all game like what happened to the Vikings in that Rams game late last year, or the Bears and Saints games late in 2020, and the playoff San Francisco game in 2019. This inability to set the edge because guys weren't healthy or guys were old or DJ Wanham was starting has sunk them defensively for 3 seasons in a row, and it is a thing that is non-negotiable for me, which is also informing why a guy like George Karlaftis is higher on my list than a guy like Boye Mafe. He's definitely a speed guy. He's very explosive off the snap, and that's very nice. His power is like fine, but he is going to have to play small. Like he's not going to be the kind of guy that, we'll just like bulk him up and turn him into a nose tackle. He's not that kind of guy at all. He's also just a little bit clunky with all of his moves. He wastes motion in a way that like Karlaftis doesn't. And he doesn't have, like, Aidan Hutchinson is about the same size as Boye Mafe, but Aidan Hutchinson has something elite, that his hand talent is so elite that it's going to overcome it, and it's going to make that not matter to some degree. Boye Mafe doesn't have that. Really, the headline with Boye Mafe is that he has a dope get off. He really explodes off the line, and he's very, very aware. Some guys kind of get tunnel vision. I think Thibodeaux suffers from this. Some guys can get tunnel vision as to like their assignment and their gap and everything like that. Boye Mafe sees the field like a quarterback, and he always knows what's going on. And that's really, really valuable, which is why I'm very comfortable taking him at pick number 46. If you get like a corner at pick 12 and you get Boye Mafe at pick 46, I'm feeling pretty good about that. I wouldn't trade up for him in the second round or anything, and I wouldn't even sniff the guy in the first round. Next, there's another kind of big gap, and then there's a big kind of clunky tier of guys. There's Drake Jackson out of USC, who is just all twitch. I don't really get it. I see a lot of the highlight plays of his. They don't seem like they're sustainable. And I see lowlights that are. I see him get his pads shocked a lot. I see a really poor physicality in him. And he's very twitchy. He has to bulk up. And here's the deal. He can bulk up. He actually was, like, he played at like 275 at USC, and they had him slim down, which I think was a mistake. I think that ruined the kind of game that he wants to play. He is just a pure twitch, and he slimmed down too much. He can give up some of that twitch to get some of that power back, and then maybe you can have something. But there's a little bit of a assembly required, which is the kind of thing that you can't talk me into taking a guy that can maybe be as good as Jermaine Johnson with some assembly. That's what I see. I see his ceiling is where Jermaine Johnson is now, and Jermaine Johnson comes out of the box that way. Drake Jackson, you have to assemble him to get there. And if I have to work that hard just to get that far, I can't be convinced to take that guy before the third round. So I'd take him at 77. The rest of these guys, I wouldn't even take at 77. I'd take after a trade down or maybe even day 3. The next guy is a really interesting case, David Ojabo. He has that same smoothness that Karlaftis has. He's the other Michigan edge rusher that played next to Aidan Hutchinson. So he had good production, but he also was like next to Aidan Hutchinson, so he got a lot of one-on-ones and stuff. Whatever, right? I say discard that and focus on the traits. He has some of that same really nimble smoothness that Karlaftis has, where it seems very smooth and effortless. There's no wasted movement, and he has a lot of tenacity. He's 22 years old, and he tore his Achilles. That is a really bad injury, right? Now he'll recover from that. I think he's young enough and light enough where he'll recover from that. But part of who he was somebody who I thought needed to bulk up. And you can't add bulk and refine your game to be a more powerful game while you're also simultaneously recovering from an Achilles injury at an NFL pace. The league simply moves too fast for what this package is. Add in that he's kind of a one-season wonder, and there's the caveats to his production. He seems like a total flyer to me. And honestly, it's a very difficult path to realize what David Ojabo could be. Because when you're drafting Ojabo, you're drafting what he could be, not what he is. And to realize what he could be, you have to recover properly from the AC or from the Achilles. You have to bulk him up a bunch. You have to teach him a more powerful game. You have to, there's a big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But you also have to overcome that he could have been a flash in the pan. And you have to also get him a lot of one-on-ones like he had at Michigan. That's a lot of work to get what he could be. What he could be might be worth it, but if I have to do all that work, I am not taking that guy even at number 77 in the third round. I'm trading down. I'm taking him in the compensatory pick range, if not day 3. Nick Bonito is the next guy on my list. He's another small, lanky guy. He's very explosive off the line, and he's a bendy dude around the edge. So there's a world there. I put in my notes, DJ Wanham with actual skills, which is perhaps a little unkind. But he is very maxed out. He's another one of these guys. I think he weighs like 250. He just won't bulk up. So this is his game. His game is to be a bendy speed rusher around the edge, but kind of only pass downs. And I wouldn't feel very comfortable with him setting the edge in the run game, which means he can't be a starter for me. He will max out at a rotational role unless he bulks up, which his frame is maxed. He can't bulk up. So he will be a rotational guy. That means he's a round 4 dude to me. And then the last guy on this list that I'm going to talk about is Arnold Ebiketie. Another, I'm way lower on him than a lot of people. A lot of people have him in the late first round with like George Karlaftis and Jermaine Johnson. I don't see it. I'm sorry. He's again 250. He needs to bulk up and he needs to learn things. He is very much like motor only. And I don't really expect him to bulk up. But here's the problem with him. And this is what I'll leave you with. He is not strong in the run game. And like technically in the run game and gap sound and stuff like that, he has a weakness there. So to learn what he has to learn, either learn how to play as an undersized guy or to, get that bulk, he needs to get reps and get on the field. And you can't get on the field unless you're better at run defense, but you can't get better at run defense unless you're on the field. I see a very difficult path forward for Arnold Ebiketie. And I don't even see, like with Nick Bonito, I see a role. With Ebiketie, I don't really see a role for him until work is done. And even that is just enough of a role to get him to be like a contributing member until he can actually do it. I have a really hard time taking Arnold Ebiketie at any point in day 2. He is also a round 4 guy to me. So that's my list. People are not going to like it. You're going to disagree with it. I'm okay with that. But remember, it's Vikings specific. If I'm the Jaguars, I'm putting Thibodeaux number 1. But I'm not the Jaguars. I'm the Vikings. So that is it. I will incorporate this into mock drafts and stuff. We have Mock Draft Monday. Don't forget to get your day 3 guy to me. Link in the show notes for that or in the YouTube description. Make sure you check out the ultimate mock draft I picked. Come listen. Tell me what you think of my pick. I'm sure you guys will be okay with it. I will see you all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.